enabler perspective. Having said that, I would like to welcome Adarsh. Adarsh, floor to you.
Another quick check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm just going to start presenting my screen and get started. All right, so thank you so much for that fantastic introduction, and Kader, and I really applaud this community out here to actually come on a Saturday morning and be a part of us as we basically are here to support this community and build more creativity, build more learning in the ecosystem, which is going to enable a lot of economic growth and skills and talent in the ecosystem. And that's why we are here today. So as Kader already gave a brief introduction of myself, so I'm essentially Adarsh Datta. I am the developer engagement lead. The way I describe my role is how do I, like when I wake up in the morning, I think about how do I support and celebrate the work that developers essentially do. And it's all about identifying what the gaps are in the market and how we can actually do it. Now, think about these times. Now, Kader has been continuously mentioning things like the old normal versus the new normal. And my life also completely changed, like all of our lives changed in the last, I would say, 5 weeks by now, correct? And the biggest challenge that we had is how do we enable people around the world? How do we help them get connected? And one of the best things which our CEO, Satya Nadella, said is that we consider ourselves as the digitally first people. Like we are the ones who should enable people to get digital and get people connected through our products and technologies. And I'm going to talk something about that. It just so happens it's related. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is this, and I know Kader already spoke about this a little bit. I just feel my slides look better, but then, so he already spoke about the evolution of industrialization. He already spoke about the various inflection points that came into picture when we decided about what was the next proliferation of technology, which led. The first one was about steam engines. The second one was about electricity. The third one was about chips, about radio, about nuclear fission, and that led to the proliferation of technology and services and products. And the final one, which we are still going through right now, is called as the Industry 4.0, starting around 1985 with the invent of the internet and the information revolution, which really started coming into picture. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. I'm just going to go ahead with the next slide. Okay, so we, Microsoft, are essentially a platform company. And yes, we do sell products. We do sell what is Azure. We do sell Microsoft 365 Teams that you guys are using right now. We do sell business applications and all a huge suite of products. But what we essentially sell is a dream of digitally transforming our customers. Now, that is what our bread and butter is. Like, how can we enable our customers digitally transform? And Kader was also talking about the same thing as to how do we digitally transform and make use of all the technology advancements which are coming. And that's exactly what our job is. So whenever we are talking about digital transformation with our customers, there are mainly 4 things that we talk about. The first one we talk about is how do we engage our customers? Or rather, how do we help our customers engage their customers? Let me put it that way. How do we help our customers engage with their customers? How do we help our customers optimize their operations? How do we help our customers empower their employees? And finally, how do we empower our customers transform their products? So that is the overall 4 main pillars of digital transformation. And across all industries, whenever we talk to our customers, these are the 4 main buckets of strategic headline that we keep talking about. Now, let's focus on the opportunity available in IoT. And I think we've been talking about IoT for almost like 6 to 7 years ago. And every year you see these numbers change, right? You always see a massive number, which is going to tell you about so many devices that are going to come up by the year 2025. And likewise, this presentation is not very different, although I will dive in a little bit deeper to give you guys an idea about what real world IoT really looks like. So just hold on to that thought, okay? So what we're seeing is that by 2025, there'll be 80 billion connected things, which will have about 180 zettabytes of data flowing up amongst all of these. And how do we actually leverage and get the value out of it? The next thing is that by adopting IoT solutions, there'll be 130 billion of new monetization avenues which can be created in the market. The third thing is around 80% of the companies that implement any kind of IoT will have increased revenue. And whenever we talk about increased revenue, we always also have to talk about decreasing of costs. Companies who adopt IoT technologies will see about, on an average, $100 million worth of average operating income increase. So those are the four main business value propositions, if you can think about when we think about any kind of IoT solutions. And IoT solution beautifully fits into our all-up digital transformation story that we're talking about. But then, fact is that IoT projects are not easy. They're actually super complex. In fact, there is a statistic which shows that there are only about 70% of IoT POCs which actually go from POC to production stage. Sorry, 70% fail to go from POC to production stage. 70% are a much higher number. So, and we are very well aware of that, right? And so our job right now is to really help our customers understand what are the biggest challenges in creating an IoT project and really getting value out of it and not really fail through it, right? So some of the challenges that we come across is the first thing is security. And I know Kadir already touched upon this, but then the fact is that the world of internet connected people, the world of IoT is connected things, which basically means that there is a lot more exponential information flow happening. And if at all we do not have encryption in them, if at all we do not have cybersecurity measures in them, there is a chance of attacks, which we cannot afford to do, because any kind of cybersecurity attack is extremely expensive for the company and the organization. And the worst part is that they don't even know when the attack has happened. They, on an average, get to know much later than when the attack actually happens. So security is the biggest concern amongst the top companies that we worked with. The second thing is about complexity. Now, lack of IT, OT integration impedes efficiency. What does that mean? IT is information technology, OT is operational technology. So when we are thinking about a manufacturing plant, for example, correct? There are a lot of things in the manufacturing plant. There's a lot of hardware, there are a lot of moving parts out there, right? But then if at all we add sensors to those moving parts and that hardware in a manufacturing plant across the entire value chain, we can derive a lot of information, feed it into our information technology, and derive value out of it and really know. And it's almost like the machine start talking to us. But then fact is that there is a huge integration piece which is required out there between the information technology and the operational technology. Now, that's probably the hardest thing, because all of you who are listening to the call, most of you will identify yourself as a software guy or a hardware guy if you're in the technology field. I'm not talking about everyone. A lot of you may be in marketing and exec leadership, everything together. But I'm just talking about for a person who is a software guy, may understand how to deal and write code and build information technology products, may be different from someone who knows the hardware really well, right? So there's an integration out there needs to happen. It's a very unique skill set. Not everyone has it. So that's why talent is the most difficult thing to find. And all of that basically boils down to heavy upfront investments, which is actually super important. And the third bucket out here is now, once you connect all these devices with sensors and things, which essentially talk to us, which essentially let us know what's really happening with them, we need to manage the data. And there's another silo which is created. And how do we make sure that all the data starts talking about across the entire value chain? How do we make sure that we realize the value by, if at all part A is doing something and that has a correlation with part C, then how do we correlate that? So we need to make sure that they don't work in their own silos and we just derive information individually, but we need to correlate as the overall value chain. What is the overall picture trying to tell us? Okay, and that is why IoT projects are super complex. So based on all of these things, Microsoft has come up with a practice development framework for IoT specific things. Within Microsoft, we have something called as Microsoft Consulting Services, and our consulting services team basically have defined this is, first of all, let's figure out what is the strategy, why do we want to do this, and what is the main objective we want to do it. Next, hire and train, because it's extremely important to have the right people in your team before you get started in the project. Yes, you do go ahead and do agile. Obviously, all of these things happen, but then fact is that you need to have the right people in your team to operational. And then third one is operationalize, go to market, and then finally optimize and grow that product out. So those are the few things when it comes to what is the practice development framework from a real life IoT project really look like. And this is like a standardized process that Microsoft follows within our consulting and services team. Okay, and if everything goes together, I'm going to show you this image. And actually, when Kadir was talking about virtual reality and augmented reality, and I was like, oh wait, I got a slide for that, guys. So this is actually an example of Industry 4.0, right? It, like, when the first time I saw this picture, it looked completely fabricated to me. It looked completely futuristic, but guess what? This is actually happening now. This person is wearing a HoloLens, and he's actually seeing in his own world a holographic image of a machine lathe, and he's designing it digitally, and then it runs digitally. It runs a lot of algorithms at the back end to identify the functioning, if at all you fine tune parameters before you actually go build it completely from scratch. So this is what is actually happening these days in terms of Industry 4.0, correct? So ultimately, what really happens is that if at all we are able to unlock the value of IoT, the opportunity is available across all industries. I'm not going to dive into each of these industries and show you where and how it's happening. Let's just talk about retail, for example, right? So if at all you have good IoT experiences within the retail industry, there'll be better experiences, new market opportunities. So for example, I still remember about Target Canada, right? Whenever I used to go to Target US, I actually used to love the experience because it really had a lot of options. But when I started going to the Target Canada, the inventory was almost always empty. Now, I'm just thinking about myself. I'm pretty sure there are people who would have thought about this. But then fact is that if those shelves had sensors attached to them, and those sensor data would have gone and told the backend inventory system that, hey, this particular item shelf is completely empty, we need more, then a notification would go, people would come and stock it up and those kind of things. And over a period of time, that data would be collected, and a machine algorithm would be run on that data collected, and they would be able to predict in a much better way about what inventory is really required and things like that. So that's just one example I could think of in the retail about how do you enable better experiences in the retail industry. Energy is likewise, transportation, like all of us drive cars these days, and all these cars actually have a whole bunch of, as we call it, it's called as in-vehicle infotainment systems or sensors, which basically continuously feed data as to about how our driving style is, how our fuel efficiency is, and everything together. And that actually can help us in our own insurances. Like for my case, I have a device I got about 14% discount because of my driving capabilities from my insurance as they were tracking my driving stats. So there are a whole bunch of these examples. I'm not going to walk you through every one of them, but we can definitely talk about these. With respect to the various customers that we are working with, these are all a bunch of customers that have enabled that we have enabled with IoT and help them digitally in their journey of digital transformation. Okay, I know I don't want to spend too much time because I just want to keep brief. So let's get all of these things together and actually show you a real life demo of a situation or of a customer that have realized the value and have implemented and I've actually implemented one of these sessions. So this is what a demo map looks like, and this is what we've created just to demo to our customers. Okay, so when we are demoing this to our customers, we are basically so there are a whole bunch of industry and solution. Oops, it looks like I got logged out. Let me log back in again. Okay, so I'm gonna select one particular industry in manufacturing, and let's just see what Rolls-Royce is doing. So I'm just gonna go to the demo site, and I'm gonna put in my name. I'm not gonna tell you guys my password. And okay, so this is how an end-to-end IoT solution looks like. And I know when I said Rolls-Royce, you guys might have thought a fancy car is going to come in and that's how you're going to do it. But we are basically going to talk about Rolls-Royce jet engines and how Rolls-Royce is managing their jet engine business with their customers and how they are helping their customers streamline servicing and reduce fuel burn, because those are the biggest cost elements. And we're essentially talking about their customers like, Airbus or Boeing for that matter. So in this entire map, at any given point of time, there'll be about 16,000 Rolls-Royce jet engines up in the air along with the aircrafts. And I am, as you can see out here, I'm an engineering supervisor at the Rolls-Royce, and I'm basically monitoring this across what's happening everywhere, right? And there are basically a lot of KPIs, which are leading indicators of where problems can happen that I need to keep mind of. And that's how this dashboard has been built. Okay, so there's going to be a normalized fuel efficiency, fleet utilization is about 91%, which is all great. On-time performance, which is all great. But then this one here, fleet status, is what is the most important thing I keep a watch on. And it basically keeps bubbling up all the notifications that I get across all the flights which are in place. So you can see the ones which are green are at the bottom, the ones which are orange, but the ones which are red always gets bubbled up so that I can action that. So it looks like 7int G, which is A350, it's going to London, has a primary fuel problem, and you can see it clearly marked out here. So let's click on that and see what's happening. And I'm going to save this password. So now I have, from the entire view of all the flights which are flying, I have zoomed into one particular airplane which is having the particular problem. And we can see all details about this particular plane. We can see the flight variance, which means on this top right-hand corner out here, this is the expected flight path in blue, but the actual one went a little above that in terms of its altitude. Okay, so that may have caused some fuel inefficiencies out there, something that we're going to talk about. Okay, we're going to talk about location right now. It is going to go from a destination standpoint, it'll hit Frankfurt. The next flight will be from here to here. Time until next departure is about 3 hours 45 minutes. And the last service for this particular flight happened in London on the 25th. The next service is due on the 25th of October 2020, which is quite a distance away. Correct. So now let's see what the problem is. Looks like there's a problem with the propulsion system. Sorry, one more thing I just want to talk about here is RUL. So there are two engines, as you can see, engine 1 and engine 2. The RUL is the remaining user life. Now, RUL is like a KPI that we come up with by running a lot of machine learning models just to showcase what is the remaining user life of a particular part. And that is something that is different for every part. It's completely based on all the data that we collect over the period of time of its usage. So right now you can see that for this particular engine 1, that's 52% is left, and for engine 2, 51% is left. Okay, so let's see whether the problem is in the propulsion system. Now we go deeper. So you remember, we came up from the big picture of all the flights to one flight, to the propulsion system, to the exact part detail where the problem is actually happening. And we see that the problem is actually happening in the primary fuel pump out here. So one option out here is to actually repair this or request for maintenance, and they will figure out how to repair this or change it completely and things like that. So once we dove in deeper, we saw that currently in for this, the part is there are 6 parts at the location. And the time to departure is about 3 hours 45 minutes, which means we have enough time for the maintenance guy to go and change this particular system and change this particular part. And available technicians are there. So based on all these details, I'm just going to click on request maintenance, and it's going to go description. It's going to find the location. I'm going to say assign available inventory, notify, create a service desk request, boom, and that's it. So I am sitting here in Toronto, and I identified all these problems happening with this particular flight. And I created a service request, which is triggering a service request on a Dynamics CRM, which is enabling the maintenance guy to go and this. And now you see that particular top one has actually gone from here. So this is a live example of how an IoT system is enabling an entire digital transformation for Rolls-Royce. And Rolls-Royce, by adopting something like this, is enabling the customers to achieve more, reduce fuel burn and things like that. Okay. Kader, how much time do I have left?
You're 6 minutes over time. But if you have something else that would make a difference, please go ahead. Yeah.
6 minutes over time. Okay, fine. So I'm not going to spend too much time in that case, but hopefully that was a clear picture about how IoT is working across. I'm just going to take one step towards the technology. I'll just take a couple of minutes more just to showcase about what the Azure IoT reference architecture looks like. So it's very simple if you think about it. It's very logical. There are things in the market. There are insights that you derive from the things. And finally, based on whatever insights you derive, you take actions out of it. OK, so things, insights, and actions. This is the main generic reference architecture that we talk about all IoT products. And if at all you want to know what it really means, it's basically boils down to all of these different technologies in different places. So in the things side of things, there is Azure IoT Edge happening. There's a lot of cognitive services. There's Azure Sphere happening. From an insight standpoint, there's something called as cold analytics, wherein you take the data, push it into a database, and use your machine learning models you built out of it for later analytics. Hot analytics is when you take the data and do some real-time analytics on it. You create some dashboards out of it for real-time analysis. And finally, you have warm analytics, which is like between both of them. And then once you have the data, you basically derive insights from the data and you take action on it. So for example, the example which I showed you, we found the data that the engine propulsion system was not working correctly, and that created a service request using the Dynamics 365 and told the request maintenance people to go there. Okay, so that's overall how the picture works about taking all the information from all the sensor devices which exist across the entire plane and actually making it happen. Okay, so the way we do it is, first of all, that solution that you saw was something called as an IoT Solution Accelerator. It's an end-to-end implementation that we do for our customers, in this case, Rolls-Royce. The picture that you see out here is obviously fabricated, and if you recognize the picture, is exactly the picture that I was showing you. This is how an IoT Solution Accelerator works. And there are various features to this. It helps in remote monitoring, connected factory, predictive maintenance, and device simulation. But the core of all of this is the Azure IoT Hub. Azure IoT Hub is the gateway. If you remember Kader's presentation, he was talking about there are sensors, there's a cloud gateway, and then there'll be insights derived. Azure IoT Hub is the core of all of this. It is which enables bidirectional communication, it enables security, it enables provisioning of devices, and all of these things put together. Azure IoT Edge is when the connectivity is not the best possible. So for places where the Wi-Fi or the connectivity is not happening, therefore you have Azure IoT Edge solutions. And I know I'm rushing through this only to just cover everything. But finally, I just want to end with one message to you guys is that IoT is not simple. It really takes a lot of time to get it right. And all I wanted to share with you guys today is some real life examples and getting what a connected enterprise looks in real life. So I hope I was able to convey some points. More than happy to answer any questions if there is time, but we can do it later in the networking session too. I've just created a link out here. I'm going to post this link on the chat window too. If you go to this link, then you will be able to join the developer community. There's an Azure IoT and Microsoft Learn and IoT overview documentation, which you guys can have access to. On that note, I shall end. Thank you so much, Kader. Over to you.
Thank you very much.